present, and so I just followed, but I was very concerned with what was going on. As I got to the doorway of the kitchen, Mike, quote, Mike was standing and had picked up two Coke bottles off the counter, two 26-ounce Coke bottles, and held them both out in front of him and crushed them simultaneously, one in each hand. Then, unfortunately, Mike, the entity left, and Mike was not able to come back right away, and in that delay time, Mike fell forward into the broken glass, cutting his, I don't know if his hands were cut at that moment or when he actually crushed the bottles, but they were cut fairly badly. He was obviously in shock when he came back. I got him up, moved to the couch in the living room, and again he was taken over, this time by another entity which seemed much gentler, more benevolent, and held out his hands in a very almost pathetic sort of way and said, "Do the wounds on my hands seem familiar to you?" And now we had an entity who was claiming to be or imitating Christ.
One of the things the entities used to do was they used to test us. It was as though we were being brainwashed. We'd be told to do something very bizarre immediately, or we'd be told to go at midnight to this certain forest that was very, very terrifying to us because there'd been a number of manifestations there. We'd be told to go alone there at midnight and stay there for an hour and then come home. And they were testing our readiness to respond immediately to their commands. And we were not to test them ever, because they always said proof comes to those who do not ask for it, which sounds vaguely biblical, but it isn't. And I recall one time, one of the entities was put to the test. One of the particular people in the group suddenly spoke to it in German. And the entity, without missing a beat, stopped its sentence with the other person, turned and addressed him in flawless German, and then turned back and continued the conversation. Well, none of us knew German. None of us had studied it at any time. But the entity was able to switch in and out of the other language immediately.
This was something that nobody was supposed to know, and we couldn't tell anybody at all. But the big thing was she was dying of leukemia, and just as this remarkable coincidence, you know, the hand of fate, the intervention of God in the universe, that I was the only person that could help her, and if I didn't do this, she was going to die.
The guides told him that he was the only member of the group who had healing powers that could be used to help Aviva recover from her leukemia. They brought him in, they brought him closer to Aviva. They then advised the previous hypnotist that his time was up and that Sanford should be looking after her in her trance state, and that Sanford could do the healing, and that's why he should become the leader of the group. So this is what happened, and Sanford, in giving the healing, being instructed by the guides to place his hands on Aviva's body, and he would feel through his fingers great sensations of cold or heat, depending on the instructions the guides were giving him.
I could actually feel these energies flowing, and feel the results of them, and it would take a long time to describe, but there were many different physical manifestations of this.
If Aviva had a serious pain problem with her leukemia, she would call Sanford. He'd come rushing down, talk her into trance, administer the healing, bring her back, and then he would talk to Russell, the main guide, and Russell would say, "Great job, Sanford, you know. Without you, we couldn't carry on."
What was actually happening was that I was suffering some real physical and mental and emotional problems because of all of the, not only demands, but also because of all this energy that was going through. And only after the fact, when I broke clean and got away from it, did I realize that they were doing it. They were creating this dependency. I would have to go and not only heal her, but put her down and ask them, being Russell and Tuck too, who was supposedly my guide, to channel energies through me to sort of balance my energies or fix me, because I was getting right weird. You know, these strange energies were flowing through me, and I was having hallucinations and all kinds of physical problems. And geez, these guys were really great. You know, about 10 minutes with them, flowing energy through me, and I was fine. I was like an addict that just had a hit. You know, I was great. I just felt on top of the world. It was only afterwards I realized they were doing it. They were creating it. They were creating a dependency.
And so he found that he was like a psychic drug addict. He would be going to Aviva not only to help her restore her health, but in fact to pump up his own flagging energies. And it was only when he pulled away that he began to realize, hey, you know, I feel better. And he said he realized that he felt better because he was no longer under their sphere of influence.
Sanford Allison went into channeling with no background training in metaphysics or meditation or in the use of higher mind or in the use of discrimination. It appears that the entity was well aware of that.
But Sanford Allison did not lack training. As a practicing psychic, he had much experience in the realm of metaphysics. However, this training did not prove to be a safeguard.
I was really what you would call over the edge. I was not rational throughout that time, and it got to that point. I was totally dependent on them, whoever they were, and outside of that, I was just subject to illusions and delusions and forces that I had no understanding of.
Famous mystic Emanuel Swedenborg spent an entire lifetime associating with the spirit world, yet he warned, when the spirits begin to speak with a man, he ought to beware that he believes nothing whatever from them, for they say almost anything. Things are fabricated by them and they lie. They would tell so many lies, and indeed with solemn affirmation, that a man would be astonished. If a man listens and believes, they press on, and deceive and seduce in many ways.
I don't know what Ekton is. That's why I call him a non-physical personality. In my own meditations, I've met some personalities that are a little shady, you know, but nothing that I would consider demonic in a traditional religious sense.
The problem with mediumship is, perhaps the greatest common denominator, is it's very unnatural for people to turn over their personal sovereignty to another entity. When they do this, they don't know what they're picking up. They don't know who's speaking through them. There's no way that they can test what this voice is, what its source is. And as I've said, that usually, perhaps 99% of the time, if not more, that voice is there as a parasite, no more.
Author Dave Hunt, in his book America, The Sorcerer's New Apprentice, examines channeling.
Carl Jung, in his time, he said, no, these are depths of the psyche, but he came to believe that these are spirit beings. You can't escape it before his death. And he came to believe maybe, hey, they may not all be good. Maybe some of them are evil. So there are people who would say it's the wisdom of the universe, the ancient wisdom. Edgar Mitchell, one of our astronauts, at the Institute of Nordic Sciences, which he founded, he would say that sort of thing. It's the ancient wisdom that, when you were back in Greek days, you know, they consulted the oracle at Delphi. And there's some kind of a mysterious wisdom that's just built into our genes, into the collective consciousness or psyche of the human race. Others would say, no, these are ascended masters. Elizabeth Clare Prophet, who claims to channel Jesus and Buddha and so forth, she would say that. Others would say well, it used to be popular to say these are the spirits of the dead. There are a variety of explanations for this. My research indicates they're demons.
While researching mediumship, Western psychologist William James stated, "The refusal of modern enlightenment to treat possession as a hypothesis to be spoken of as even possible, in spite of the massive human experience in its favor, has always seemed to me a curious example of the power of fashion in things scientific." That the demon theory will have its innings again is to my mind absolutely certain. One has to be scientific indeed to be blind and ignorant enough to suspect no such possibility.
Well, they claim to be ascended masters, but in reality they were the exact opposite end of the spiritual scale. There's no question in my mind now that they were demon spirits. If you